I'm going to move to Greg Fleischman, our friend. Greg?
Mentor. Hey, Chris. Thanks. What are
Hey,
we on,
Greg.
hour two? Nice to see you again. So you've said that the most dangerous negotiation is the one you don't know you're in.
Did I say that?
Or you said that many times, and apparently you're in the quote section of Barnes and Noble too. So can you give us 10 to 20 or 30 examples of that?
Well, I think we're in one right now. Anytime the words "I want" or "I need" are coming across your lips or in your head, you're in a negotiation. What we're really looking for, the commodity that's at stake in negotiations is time, is actions, is behavior, is implementation. A story I've told 1,000 times, but I think it's a great example. There was a gentleman started a global phenomenon called secrets. Tell me your secrets anonymously. I'll share your secrets with the world. Someone is struggling with the same thing you're struggling with. People know they're not alone. They're not the only one. And that was his intention, to let people know they're not alone. So I'm talking to him at a conference a couple years ago, and I'm saying about this dangerous negotiation concept, and he says, yeah, I got a brand new Starbucks coffee cup still in a wrapper mailed to me with a note that said, I give decaf to people who are mean to me. Ordering coffee at Starbucks is a negotiation because you're looking for implementation. What's the other side going to do? I'm talking to a young lady in LA probably about 5 years ago. She says, I work for Sony. I'm in the music licensing section. We don't really negotiate. People call us up. They want rights to a song for a movie. We tell them how much it is. There's no negotiation. And I'm thinking like, yes, there is. Like the guy who calls you on the phone asking about the rights to whatever song. You're going to write down his request and it's going to go to the bottom of the pile. It might fall off your desk. It may file into, the file 13, the trash can next to you. If the guy was engaging, if the guy or gals calls up and says, God, I bet it's horrible over there today. I bet everybody's treating you as if you're a file clerk. I bet people don't appreciate how hard you're working to advance your company's mission. Well, you write his request down. Not only is it not going at the bottom of the pile, you may pick that up and walk it down the hall and advance it by 2 days in the system. So anytime we're looking for collaboration from somebody, if we're looking for them to simply not get in our way, that's a negotiation. The most, never be mean to someone who could hurt you by doing nothing. Well, if you're talking to them, you're trying to get them to do something, they say, yeah, there's nothing I can do. It's out of my hands. The flip side of that is, if they could hurt you by doing nothing, there's something they could do for you if they felt like it. And the whole tactical empathy approach is just not only by making people feel like helping you, but making them feel better about their day and what they did in the moment, so that helping you actually made them feel better.
Beautiful, Chris. Just absolutely beautiful answer. And Greg, what a question. I love that quote. Completely forgot about it. So good. Wendy Starland, what is up?
Hey, thanks again for everything. This is such a great room, and huge congratulations to Chris on, the 5-year anniversary of the book and selling well over 1 million copies, which is just such an outstanding achievement. Totally unbelievable. I have a quick question, and, I was just trying to think of questions among all of these brilliant minds in the room, and I started to think about the Me Too movement. Half of the people on here are girls, and I can think that most of the people in here have probably come across some negotiation that they had to deal with where they wanted to go into business with the person. They wanted to at least navigate through a situation where they wouldn't have to be put in an uncomfortable position and have to navigate successfully. How would you suggest doing so and negotiating in a situation where you know you're dealing with someone who will be unfair?
For a lot of reasons, that's a great question. The one thing I know for sure as a man is I got no idea the amount of nonsense that women have to put up with on a daily basis. Just like I get no idea. I remember a couple of years ago, when I first started to get like a glimmer into this, I'm watching this, they got a hidden camera that's following a moderately attractive young lady down the streets of New York. And the amount of predatory behavior just walking down the street that she had to put up with. My problem is since I don't act like that, I assume that women don't have to put up with that constantly. This was just like a 10-minute walk. I mean, just verbal assaults. And, I'm teaching at USC, and I'm walking across the campus, and I'm the 20-something, the college students, it's hot. A young lady's probably going to be dressed for the summertime in shorts and a tank top just because it's hot. And I'm thinking, like, I wonder how many times just cross campus she had to put up with woof whistles or some sort of inappropriate behavior just in the 10 minutes that she had to walk across campus. And as men, we have no idea how much women have to put up with that, so that, those of us that are oblivious to this, inadvertently we say stuff and are shocked by the reaction. It's a lack of appreciation on our side of what women have to put up with constantly or be misinterpreted by. So, your original question, like, how do you put up with it? I mean, that's a tough call. I offer the first move to be withdraw and regroup. There's males test one another in a predatory fashion on a regular basis and put up with each other without understanding how ridiculously inappropriate and wrong it is to do it at all, let alone with women. And, the first move is to regroup, to decide how to respond. An angry response, I could never blame a woman for getting angry in the moment. And I'm not a great counselor of anger, but their line drawing, boundary setting should be done. Even if you can't set a boundary in a way that you're not feel completely emotionally under control by, I think boundary setting for bad behavior should be part of everybody's MO, method of operating. Be willing to suffer the consequences of setting boundaries to continue to demonstrate that you will be respected, and you're not willing to tolerate not being respected. The long-term gain of making people respect you exceeds whatever short-term loss there may be. For women at different ages, Nicole and I were in a room with Barbara Corcoran a couple of weeks ago. Barbara Corcoran gives better than she gets. I mean, if you sexually harass Barbara Corcoran, you better be prepared for sexual harassment 2 to 3 times in response, because she was dealing with New York real estate developers 20 years ago, and Barbara just decided she was going to give better than she ever got. That was a personal choice. Where I like to see the world going much more these days, Kat Cole, phenomenal businesswoman, has unashamed of the fact that she was a Hooters girl, owns her femininity, is very careful with people. And I've never been involved in a confrontation where she was confronting people, but I'm sure she has developed her own sense of confronting bad behavior and retaining her femininity. It's a balance that men do not have to try to deal with. The best we can do is be supportive of it as much as possible. But I don't like the idea of letting negative behavior pass. And I think boundary setting is an important aspect of everybody's, all human beings' welfare and well-being.
Thank you. It's very insightful.
Wow, Chris, that was very insightful, and I wanted to say that I love how you are such a huge supporter of women. I agree with what you're saying about the boundary setting. You've helped me with that tremendously, and it works. And I think a lot of your work and what you teach in the book does help with boundary setting. Uh, even no-oriented questions in a way. Uh, I feel like somehow help with that, or lead to you setting boundaries or expectations. Even it's okay to have expectations of people, but again, I do love the way that you support women, and the way that you're always, I feel like, on their side and aware of their struggle when I don't know if everyone is. And even to the extent that sometimes I realize maybe I'm not enough. And an example of that is, I think I called you to tell you about an instance where somebody's wife was concerned about me, talking to her husband or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, can you believe that? Can you believe that she's acting like that? And you said, well, maybe it's something that guy is doing, uh, to make her feel that way. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I went and blamed a woman, and you saw it a completely different way. And you approach everything with such perspective and open-mindedness. And I really appreciate that about you, and I'm sure everyone else does too. Another thing that I wanted to bring to your attention was, um, you, someone drew a sketch of you, and if you go to the bottom of the stage, you will see Octavia drew you. She's a sketch artist. She usually hangs out in Leah's rooms and sketches all of us there. But I did notice that she sketched you today, and she tagged you on Instagram. And if you just click on her photo, that's you. Did you take a look?
I'm looking at it now. I'm happy there's no horns on the head of the sketch. I am thankful for that.
If you like, we can add that if you like,
No,
but of course not.
There's also no confused look on my face. I don't see that as a confused look. So yeah, I like the sketch. It's very flattering. Thank you.
I'm glad you like it. And I think you're awesome. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Octavia. It's such a great sketch, and I'm so happy. I was so happy when I saw that you did that, and thank you for coming back in so that we could show him and everyone on the stage. Chris, I'm gonna guess that you're running out of gas, but I could be wrong. If you have more energy, you let me know.
I think we got about 15 minutes left, and then I'm gonna turn into a pumpkin.
Oh my God. Okay, well, thank God, because I did invite. Let me invite one more person to the stage. But I did bring up Aubrey, who I'm sure has an insightful question. What's up, Aubrey?
Hey guys, how are you? Hey Chris.
Hey,
So
Aubrey.
hot. So happy to be here. My dad is actually a huge fan, and he's in the oil and gas industry in Texas and watches you and uses all of your tactics. And I would love for you to speak about the late night DJ and how to escalate conflict. Aubrey, done
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah, sure. The late night FM DJ voice. I mean, it has an impact. I mean, it works. We did it in hostage negotiation when the other side was already out of control. And we thought it just worked with hostages or hostage takers. And then I remember while I was still at the FBI, we had a hypnotherapist in the room. And all this is, of course, before neuroscience. And he walks up to me after I spent a lot of time talking about the voice. And he said, that's the first voice that they taught us in hypnotherapy training. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm on the right track. I know exactly why it works. I don't actually care why it works. I just know it does. And then we apply it across the board with people we're interacting with. When somebody's upset, it's the first move to go to. I'm going to want to smile after I've slowed their brain down and calmed them down without making them feel threatened or backed into a corner or condescended to. It's subtle little 2-millimeter switches in a voice. But then I'm going to want to smile because I'm going to want to pick them back up. You're Sean Acker, Harvard psychologist, The Happiness Advantage, TED Talk, my source of data. He says you're 31% smarter in a positive frame of mind. I want you to be smarter. I want you to collaborate with me. So I'm gonna go from the late night FM DJ voice to to the smiling, engaged voice. The voice of actual, genuine, positive regard, because I genuinely have regard for you. And then one of the things that I talked about earlier, but I love saying again, this stuff does me good too. And recently, when I was going through, dealing with my mother's passing, I spoke at her funeral. I told jokes at her funeral. My favorite joke, which was true. What's the difference between my mom and a terrorist? You can negotiate with a terrorist. I mean, my mother was a tough, no nonsense, meant what she said kind of woman who inspired me in so many different ways. And then when I was speaking at her funeral, I mean, I started to get choked up, and I switched into the late night FM DJ voice just to get my own emotions under control. So, this stuff does more for you than it does for the other person, and it does a lot for the other person. So there's a lot of reasons to use the voices of great collaboration in your negotiation. It's good for both people.
Yeah, Chris, that's so helpful. It seems like it's a lot about the nervous system, like calming the nervous system.
Yes. Yeah. Leveling it out. I mean, deactivating the amygdala, the portions of the amygdala, which is 75% of that little almond-sized organ in the center of your brain. 75% of that baby is dedicated to negative thoughts. So as much of it as you can deactivate and smooth out and pull out of the equation, then more nuanced, more intelligent thinking gets kicked into gear.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aubrey. I brought up Gabriel to the stage. Gabriel, I see you're new to this app. You just have to go to the bottom right to unmute your mic. Like the bottom right of this. There we go.
Yeah, hi Nicole. Thanks for bringing me on. Hello, Chris.
Gabriel, welcome.
Thank you. I'm curious. Is it a bad idea to label every statement my counterpart makes?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bad idea to label every one. I mean, it's contextually driven. How are my labels going? How are they reacting to them? Am I demonstrating some insight? At some point in time, I'm going to want to collect all the labels and roll them in to a summary to try to make them feel thoroughly understood, like a 5-star, that's right. I mean, if you get a full-on that's right out of somebody, one of the things that Tal Raz, our co-author in a book, pointed out over, if you trigger a that's right, Tal said 5 years ago, it's an indicator of an epiphany moment. You've triggered an epiphany in the other side. So I'm like, cool, like Tal is so smart. I gotta dig into epiphanies. What happens when you experience an epiphany? Among the neurochemicals that are released is oxytocin. Oxytocin is a bonding drug. I'm going to label a lot, but I'm really going to go for the bond. I want us to be bonded. I want us to trust each other. I want you to trust me. Not because it puts me in a position to betray that trust, but it puts me in a position to have a great relationship with you for a long time. And for you not to have your amygdala kicking back into gear and make you fearful of me unnecessarily. Because that's what the amygdala is going to do if I don't override it. So, I took your question on, do I label everything? I label a lot. But I'm really going to go for a moment of real trust-based influence, and I'm going to get that from a summary.
Yeah, thanks very much. That's very insightful, Chris.
Thank you,
Yeah, good
Chris.
question. Thanks, man.
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to throw it to our last audience member with a question.
And follow
And
Nicole Benham on Instagram. Follow her on Beyond the Interview. Follow her personal Instagram. And I know, being the social media maven genius practitioner that you are, you got a link. You got Twitter too. Or you have to be on Twitter. I know you're killing it on Twitter.
I'm doing okay on Twitter. But yeah, I should tweet more. But I mean, everyone really should be following you. If you're not following, I'm sure everyone's following you here after hearing you speak, but you really do post uh, the best stuff on your Instagram. I mean, you tweet it, you make it those little images. They're incredible. I love that. Every time I see one on my feed, I'm like, oh, I feel like 10 times smarter. So I highly recommend following Chris on Instagram. And also, what was the Black Swan Group link?
BlackSwanLTD.com is the website. BlackSwanLTD.com. We got a ton of free material out there. I mean, you can sign up for the blog, but we dump massive amounts of free material on you for a very mercenary reason. The more you level up your negotiations, the more money you make, you are in a position there to take the expensive training that we give and have it be a bargain. I want you making tons of dough so that your return on investment on negotiation training always exceeds what you spend.
There we go. You heard it here from the man himself. I'm gonna throw it to our last audience member on the stage, Yerushalayim.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for bringing me up. Chris, thank you for answering my question. As you know, there are several conflicts and genocides happening right now all over the world. Tigray genocide happens to be one of the hidden, heinous crimes against humanity going on, and genocide and still going on for 6+ months. And there is no action yet from the global communities and the United Nations. The Security Council met 6 times, but still no action. So I was wondering, how do you define humanity, and what does humanity means to you? Thank you so much.
Wow. Tough thing to wade into, and I am happy to do so, because the problems in Africa, like one of my favorite people on the planet is Bono from U2, has been wading into trying to help Africa, Bono and Bob Geldorf, for the longest time, and patient and relentless about it. There's no shortage of challenges for Africa. Colonial powers having left behind systems that have just they exploited the continent, each in a different ways. The 3 primary colonial powers were the English, the Spanish, and the French. Everybody's wading into Africa. Former colonies of Italy, Portugal, trying to exploit the resources there at the expense of the people that were living there. I mean, the history of the challenges of the continent. A great book out there called Prisoners of Geography, laying out the geographical challenges the African continent has that many other continents don't have. Shortage of navigable rivers, shortage of deep water ports. Nigeria, one of the most oil-rich places on the planet. The systemic corruption among the governments. I mean, go on and on and on. You want to do God's work, do anything to try to help the African continent. Anything. And don't get too complicated about it. Kat Cole's got a charity that she's working with where she brought a bunch of Westerners to try to help a portion of Africa. And one of the Westerners said, "Give me your top 5 priorities." And the leader that they were dealing with said, water, 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 and water. So where do you start with Africa? However they will accept the help. Whatever, somebody's worried about corruption in their government, they're worried about a genocide today first. They're worried about actually making it to see the sun rise tomorrow. Some appreciation of the challenges and how difficult the challenges are. You start with, the water example is what's the most binding constraint? What's going to kill them now versus what do you want to work on? And I think Africans are far more in tune with how do we live to see the sun rise tomorrow, and then get to the more complex issues after the fact. And where the genocides have taken place, it's because the UN Security Council is dithering because of their colonial interests, or their unwillingness to forgive African debt, or their unwillingness to recognize that they supported a regime that is ridiculously corrupt. So start with survival today, and start with not being ashamed of saying, we want everybody to live to see the sunrise tomorrow. And just get people to recognize humanity and let the complexity of the answers come after some of the simplest ones are. And in many cases, the simplest one is, how do we make sure people live to see the sunrise?
Wow, that was very powerful. Thank you so much.
That was so powerful, Chris. Thank you so much for that. And Yerushalayim, beautiful question. Chris, one more question?
Uno más.
Chris, I have a question for you. I've always wondered, what's the difference between an FBI agent versus a private investigator? Are you guys kind of like neighbors, or does one only catch cheating husbands? Like, what's the difference between the two?
It's really going to have a lot more to do with who's the person that's doing a job and what are they dedicated to. The advantage of being an FBI agent is I'm going to get paid regardless of my effectiveness. And, if I get an issue of the direction that you're pointing me to, I was famous for sticking to the mission of the FBI and pretty much disregarding what my immediate supervisors told me to do. They might get caught up in the mission of, the urgency of the moment, the political climate of the moment. And I really took to heart, defending and protecting the American people. So when, nobody could really cut off my pay as long as I was dedicated to that mission. Private investigator got to cater a little bit more towards the client that's paying them in the moment. They got the urgency of, I got a mortgage to make. I get bills to pay. I got to put my kids through college. I was a loose cannon that always hit the target. So it was a little bit easier for me. I mean, I could tell you stories of upper management being worried about what I was going to do because they never knew for sure what I was going to do, but they knew that I was going to deliver. My former boss, Gary Nessner, supported me tremendously. Because my son is another version of me. My son works for me, and I disregarded everything any boss that I ever worked for told me. So how could I expect my son to be different? He likes to run my company and let me know about the results, and he does. We have tremendous results. I sent a text message to my former boss, Gary Nessner, the other day, and I said, my son is exactly like me. I owe you an apology. So an FBI agent, if he's doing his job, doesn't have to worry about getting paid. And a private detective has got financial considerations that I never had to put up with. That's really the biggest difference.
Thanks, Chris. Nicole, this has been so awesome. How do we join the Beyond Club?
Um, Honestly, you just got to follow me and I'll invite you. I think that's the only way, but you can also just follow the club. And I think maybe you'll get notifications that way as well. I'm not sure how it works. They might have changed it a little bit. But I wanted to say, Chris, this has been so much fun and so insightful and so wonderful in every way. I mean, everything from the advice that you gave to mediating between two people on completely different ends of a spectrum in terms of the Middle East conflict was phenomenal. And by the way, I do see Shane Feldberg on stage, who has read your book, I think, in its entirety. So he was he was very good at doing the exercise where he articulated what the other side believed, which is a display of tactical empathy, which we should all ingrain into our lives. We should be tactically empathetic whenever we can, because life really does go your way. And yeah, I mean, just want to reiterate, life really is a series of negotiations. Some of the obvious ones like buying a car, negotiating a salary, buying a home. But when you have a relationship with other people, which we all do, a lot of the communication, like Chris said, when you say I want or I need, we experience that with probably all of our relationships, especially the intimate ones. So when you learn these tactics and you apply them to the relationships in your life, things run a lot more smoothly. And I say that as someone who has used these tactics on my parents and my brother and my friends. And Brienne has now started using them on men she's dating, and she's she's gotten dates from men from men who were not following through, and now they are, and in ways that you can't even imagine. This book will change your life. Never Split the Difference. It's on Amazon. I believe it has like 17,000 5-star reviews, something like that. It's just incredible. You don't see too many books these days with that many positive reviews unless they truly have changed people's lives, and this one has. And not only that, but if you want to watch Chris, you can also get his masterclass, which I've watched that too, and you can watch him in action. It's basically like being in a clubhouse room, except you have the visual component as well. So if that excites you, he does the radio FM DJ voice there as well. But Chris, thank you so much for doing this. I look forward to these rooms. I look forward to doing more of these, and I think we should start doing these live mediation rooms sometimes when you have maybe an hour free or something, because people are in conflict all the time, and sometimes we don't know how to deal with the conflicts that arise. It's part of being human, but there are always better ways to communicate. So I just wanted to give a shout out to you for that. You truly are the best as a friend, as a mentor, in so many ways. Like, just cannot thank you enough.
This was cool. I loved it. You hosted it wonderfully as well, and you draw in people who want to engage in enlightened conversations, and it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.